Assalamualaikum. Today I'll be presenting my final year project with the title of Why You Should Write More to Remember More, the effect of writing on memory retrieval performance under the course of KMY 3013. Before I start the presentation, I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Ifa Shazwani binti Shamsu Arif. My matrix number is 72263. My supervisor is Dr. Kartini binti Abdul and my evaluator for today will be Encik Muhammad Azhari bin Abu Bakar. Chapter 1 Introduction. Now before I start telling about the background of the study, I would like to say how I come up to do about writing and memory retrieval performance. So whenever there are tests or exams, I always read and write my notes and the results always show good improvements. So this leads me to wonder, do people do the same thing that I do and does it give a good improvement as well? After doing some research, I discovered that there are various kinds of revision or study styles, usually categorized by visual, auditory, and kinesthetic style. Now, kinesthetic style is when you manipulate or you touch a material in order to learn them. A research in Malaysia shows that many tertiary students prefer to learn using kinesthetic modality. You can see here that writing is one of the kinesthetic learning style, which it requires a finger and half movement when we learn it. Now, a study in Malaysia also found that students understand and remember information orally and in writing. Thus, the big main question of this study is that, does the involvement of a physical activity when writing makes a difference in memory retrieval performance? Next, we move on to the problem statement and the research objectives. First, the problem statement is that previous studies did not directly point out the act of writing itself as the enhancer for memorization or memory retrieval. Instead, they only pointed out the components and the parts of working memory that is responsible when writing. Hence, it can be seen here that previous studies only focuses on comprehension rather than memorization. Additionally, studies also have shown that writing is indeed a powerful tool during revising or studying, but the literature or study, especially in East Malaysia, is still so little. Thus, the present study will investigate on writing using 3 different modes of encoding and its significant difference with memory retrieval performance among university undergraduates in East Malaysia. Next, the research objective is to investigate if there is any significant difference between the 3 modes of encoding, which is reading-only tasks, reading and rewriting tasks, and reading and random writing tasks on memory retrieval performance. Next, we move on to the research questions. For the research questions, is there any significant difference between the 3 modes of encoding on memory retrieval performance? While for the hypothesis is that there is a significant difference on the 3 modes of encoding on memory retrieval performance. Now, this is the conceptual framework of the study. On the left side of the screen is the IV, or the independent variable, which are the 3 modes of encoding. First, reading-only task. Second, reading and rewriting task. And third, reading and random writing task. The right side of the screen is the DV, or the dependent variable, which is the memory retrieval performance by measuring test scores. This will later be explained in details in Chapter 3 methodology. The one between the IV and the DV is the control variable that the study aims to control is the participant's IQ. Next, the definition of terms will be explained by the IV and the DV. Firstly, the IV, which is the modes of encoding, in terms of conceptual definition, is the conversion of sensory input into a form of capable of being processed and brought into memory. While the operational definition is the 3 different modes of encoding, which is reading-only task, reading and rewriting task, and reading and random writing task. DV, which is the memory retrieval performance, defined conceptually as a cognitive process in which the information stored are brought to consciousness, while the operational definition will be measured using the TOEIC, or TOEIC listening and reading test. However, the study will only use the TOEIC reading part of the test, since the present study only uses reading as one of the IVs. On to the last part of Chapter 1, which is the significance and limitations of the study. Significance is that there will be a development of writing and memory retrieval literature, not just for university students but also for lower level institutions like primary school or high school students. The result of this study will also assist in the success of a strategic plan addressing various styles of methods during revision process. On the other hand, the limitation is that this study cannot make a generalization since the data will not be including all programs of students, thus it cannot be a representation for all undergraduates in UNIMAS. Chapter 2 Literature Review. In this part of the presentation, I will be discussing on the theories, studies, and also past findings related to writing, encoding, retrieval, and also working memory. So firstly, we're going to start with the theory of reading and writing. When one possesses fluent encoding and the knowledge, it allows them to take advantage of long-term memory resources. And also the act of finding information when students read a material with the purpose of to write in an academic writing courses, it is prone to be goal-oriented and socially constructed. Next, the theory of encoding and retrieving memory says that when encoding, perception and comprehension of outer events also involves, and it requires conscious awareness, and it varies in requirements depending on the factors like familiarity of the stimuli, compatibility with prior learning, and also the importance to the observer. Next is the related studies or literature about reading and writing and also encoding and retrieving memory. So in terms of reading and writing, a study found that self-efficacy in writing is positively and significantly correlated with writing performance as well as self-efficacy in reading. Another study also found that students with positive opinion on advanced reading and writing instruction has a good and improved critical thinking and writing skills. This is the reason why the present study only aims to have daily students as the participants. Next is the studies or literature related to encoding and retrieving memory. Processes that happen during encoding are the main determinants of what is remembered. When contextual info is provided before the text is presented, it facilitates comprehension and memory. Thus, we can say that the memories retrieved are the byproducts of processes occurring during encoding. There are also theories and studies about writing and working memory in general. There is a book telling about the history, theory, practice about revision, says that there are three writing processes that operate in conjunction with the infamous Bedel's theory of working memory that we know of, which is the formulation, execution, and also monitoring. A study regarding writing and working memory revealed that the memory skills underlying the writing activity is closely related to individual differences rather than gender differences. Another study in Japan shows that using paper notebooks rather than digital devices like iPad or tablet when writing shows higher acquisition of rich encoding information. Now on to the last part of chapter 2, it is the past findings on writing and memory retrieval. A study done by Naka and Naoi found that repeated writing improved free recall the included writing, and repeated writing also improved memory for graphic design. Now this study is the closest one to the present study. It's due to the reason that the mode of encoding that they use also have some sort of variety in it, and it was found that rehearsal by writing facilitate memory for information concerning graphic designs or materials. Another study done by Vandenberg and Swanson revealed the executive component of working memory that we are always familiar with significantly predicted planning, writing, and revision during the whole writing processes. Chapter 3 Methodology. In this chapter, I will explain what and how am I going to do the study in technical ways. So firstly is the research design. This study will be a quantitative experiment, and it is also a descriptive study rather than inferential study. The analysis will be using mean comparative analysis, and the sampling technique will be used on non-probability, which is the purposive sampling. Next is the instruments. Firstly is the demographic, second is the TOEIC reading test, and third is the papers for reading and rewriting group and reading and random writing group. Next is the reliability and validity of the TOEIC test. It is found by a study of Powers, Kim, and Wang, in which they do a test and read the study that the Cronbach alpha is the 0.95 and 0.94. So we can say here that the test is indeed reliable and valid to use. And last but not least is the population and sample. The target population will be 60 UNIMAS undergraduates, which is 20 for each of the three different modes of encoding, and the target sample is the Dean List undergraduate students. Now, onto the last part of the slide, it is the data collection and analysis procedures. The data collection, firstly, the participants will be divided into 3 groups, 20 students for each group according to the modes of encoding, reading only task group, reading and rewriting task group, and reading and random writing task group. Secondly, the TOEIC reading test will be given to the participant, which they will be given a paragraph and later fill in the blanks within the paragraph. It's also important to note that one blank is equivalent to 1 mark, and a fail on the right answer will be given a deduction of 1 mark. Now for the data analysis procedures, all the data will be analyzed using SPSS version 26, and the analysis again will focuses on descriptive data analysis. The demographic section will be represented as modes, and the mean scores of each of the modes of encoding group will be observed and compared using mean comparing procedure in SPSS. That is the end of my study of writing and memory retrieval performance. Thank you for watching.